When coming up with topics for today's video, I bounced a lot of ideas around in my head. Originally, I was going to be talking about trendy games, but I really gave it some more thought, and I decided I wanted to tackle dead games as a whole. So with that being said, what makes a game dead? Naturally, everyone is going to have a different answer to this question. One person's idea of a dead game might still be popular with a rather large community. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to try to stick with this definition. A game that has already reached its peak in popularity and is unlikely to gain a similar amount of attention for the rest of its life. Now you can say some games are more objectively dead than others, such as a multiplayer game where the servers are shut down. And you may not agree with my definition of what a dead game is, but let me know what you think. What's your opinion? But anyway, let's start off with Call of Duty. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, these games are far from dead, and you'd be right, but hear me out first. Now, don't get me wrong, Call of Duty is not going anywhere, being a juggernaut of a franchise and being one of the biggest IPs in gaming. Most people have nostalgia for this series' older games though. And even if you're not a fan, it's hard to deny the success. With that being said though, these games are not what they used to be. Before the release of the PS4 and the Xbox One, a majority of the games were playable. You could almost hop into any of the games and still be able to find a match relatively easily. However, this began to change with the release of Ghosts. During this time, we saw a shift of players upgrading to the newer consoles and leaving behind the older games because initially there was no backwards compatibility, at least for Xbox. By the time Infinite Warfare was released, you could only play the new Call of Duty if you were on next gen. Over time, the issue really grew to be a big problem for the community. It would be almost impossible to find a match without running into a hacker. Now, it's no surprise that the newer games are always just going to have more players. That's no one's arguing that. A harsh reality for a lot of players is that newer gamers from a younger generation don't have the same nostalgia for the older games. Over time, people are replaced and their targeted consumer changes. I mean, there's kids right now who see the newest Modern Warfare 2 like it's the original from 2009. This creates a major problem for gamers because Activision is actively trying to push gamers to play the newer Call of Duty and leave the old ones behind. They refuse to take action on the rampant cheating of older Call of Duties and actively try to get people to stop playing them. I mean, they sent cease and desist letters to projects like SM2 who are trying to preserve the older Call of Duties and try to negate their security risks that the developers just don't feel like patching out. Now, I feel that Activision may have done this because they would take players away from the current Call of Duty and instead play an older one where they can't make money. I mean, they recently announced that they're going to shut down Warzone 2, and the people who bought cosmetics for that game have to use them within the specific game instead of all having them in Warzone. And the games that have those cosmetics have security risks. The last thing I want to point out is Activision charging almost full price for older CODs and their DLC. Naturally, they just want to make as much money as possible, but whether Activision designed this intentionally or not, it also makes players not want to buy it and rather spend that money on the newer Call of Duty. I mean, why would I pay $60 for a 10-year-old game when I could just spend that money on the newest one? They'd rather you just pay for the overpriced content of the newest installation. Now, the shift of players and Activision's mismanagement of older games has essentially killed them, and as time goes by, it's only going to get worse. Now, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and discuss Minecraft. Now, Minecraft over the years has had pretty big history with popularity spikes. I mean, it's the best-selling video game of all time with over 250 million copies sold. And the hold it had on the early 2000s was unmatched. Everyone and their mom knew what Minecraft was, and it still continues to evolve to this day. I mean, look at the amount of creators on YouTube that centered their entire channel around Minecraft. But as the years go on, the popularity slowly started to dwindle. However, this didn't stop it from making a sort of comeback in recent years. One of them being when PewDiePie did his Let's Play of the game, and it really struck a new chord of life into the game. We've also seen newer Minecraft YouTubers like Dream, who've gathered a large following around the game, not to mention the huge community of speedrunners that gave new lifeblood to the game. It's safe to say that Minecraft is a very unique and popular game, and is not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, it's been around for a decade. The reason I bring up Minecraft is because there's the idea of the revival of a comeback of a dead game, and Minecraft has seen this up and down sort of spike over the years. However, not that many games are lucky. Multiverses, Splitgate, Fall Guys, Among Us, what do all these games have in common? Well, they reached their peak of popularity. Now, there's many reasons why these games may have lost popularity and kind of quote-unquote died. However, there are some things that they do share in common, one being the lack of variety within these games. Sure, they all have their shtick that kind of makes them stand out in a sea of games, but the developers just were not quick enough to keep up with the attention span of gamers. I mean, look at Multiverses and Splitgate. These two games were trying to capitalize off of other games and their mechanics. Multiverse, for instance, did not stand a chance against the Titan of Smash Bros. And just seemed to be a lesser version of it, and maybe a little bit of a cash grab. Splitgate was trying to become a game that was combining Portal with Halo, and after that, there just wasn't much else. Now, personally, I loved Splitgate, but after a while, I can't deny that it just started to feel like every FPS and there wasn't a lot of new things being added or anything to keep my attention. Now, that's not to say that there's no one playing these games. I mean, in the case of Multiverses, there might be no one, but they still have their dedicated community, but it's nowhere near as it once was. Trying to capitalize off another game's success is very difficult and almost nowhere has it worked. Almost. And that was the point I was trying to make with my X-Defiant video. It just doesn't seem unique, and I feel like it's going to fall into this category. However, I would love to be proved wrong. But like I said, not always is this a trend. Sometimes games break out. Battle royales are the pinnacle of following trends. It is a genre plagued with oversaturation that may be starting to decline. PUBG was a trending game, and it was the introduction to the genre for many players. And while it took the world by storm, it in and itself wasn't original. However, it was successful until competition arrived. Fortnite was a new take on the genre with its building mechanics, which lended a new skill ceiling for players to reach. This provided players with a fresh take on the game while also keeping some elements of a battle royale that players seem to enjoy. Now, I remember seeing this game in the Microsoft store, and it was kind of like that Save the World mode where you just had to survive, and out of nowhere this Battle Royale came out, and it proved to be successful. Now, I believe a reason why this game is so successful is because of the evolution that the game experiences almost on a monthly basis. I probably play this game once every 6 months, and every time I boot it up, it's like a brand new game. This evolution of design almost guarantees its survival, and I'd say that it's not going anywhere, and also those crossovers really do help the game. I'd say in the Battle Royale genre, Warzone, Fortnite, and Apex have the world at the palm of their hands. These are the big three. It's hard to speculate the future for these games, but it seems like it's almost on a decline, maybe with Warzone 1 shutting down, I don't know. So with that being said, how do developers keep multiplayer games alive? Many games nowadays are turning to the games as a service model. Destiny 2, GTA Online, Rainbow Six Siege are all games that are still alive regardless of their popularity with the majority of players. Now, some games don't really need it though, Gotham Knights and Avengers. But I mean, this path seems like a win-win for developers and players, right? I mean, players continue to play a game they love and developers still get revenue. What's bad about that? Well, the issue of a game getting stale is always going to linger for players. We see it time and time again of players becoming bored of games that are playing with substantially, and they want something new. And asking for something new in a games as a service model, it doesn't really work out. I mean, it's very unlikely that a developer will change a game from the ground up like Epic does with Fortnite. So instead, we get a gameplay loop that we just play over and over for years. And naturally, players are going to get tired of that and want the bigger and better thing. I mean, look at GTA Online. Players have been essentially begging Rockstar for years to release the new game, but they see it as too profitable and barely started doing the new one. And while it is very boring for a lot of players, it still proves to make a lot of money because there's always people that are going to play it no matter what. But how long will that last? In an ideal world, developers would just keep servers up and continue to update their older games while also making a new one. This is extremely unlikely, though, due to the amount of manpower needed to do both, and at the end of the day, a lot of publishers just don't think it's worth it. I mean, people playing video games are some of the biggest community that is divided. I mean, you're going to have players that are like, no, keep it the same, and other players like, this is boring, change it. So you can't really please everybody. However, let's talk about single player. Now, you may ask yourself, how can a single player be dead? Well, it can't. It really can't. Unless it's delisted, but that's not my point. A franchise can very easily die and sort of kill the game. You see, when a series of games stops being produced, naturally the interest will decline because people will either forget about it or new players would have never heard about it because there's no new game. A great example of this is Splinter Cell and Ubisoft not making a game in a decade while also using their IP in other games like Siege and X Defiant. However, I heard whispers of a new game in the future, but for the time being, rest in peace, because Ubisoft just hates everybody. Anyway, yeah. Games like Doom and Wolfenstein have been rebooted and gave new life to both of the games. This proves that rebooting the franchises can actually act as a savior to them. However, eventually they might end up like stinkers. But a great way of franchises staying alive is usually speedrunning. I mean, you think of any game ever, and there's almost guaranteed a speedrunning community who just plays that game almost every day. I mean, look at the original Mario Bros. People are still playing that. With that being said, a lot of games end up losing popularity and fade into the background of bigger and newer games. Whether or not the game is dead or ultimately not falls on you and your opinion. I think a lot of people online may think, oh, that game is dead because I don't play it. That's not true. I mean, the games I call dead today might not even be dead to a lot of you guys. I mean, there's still a rather large community of people playing these games. Except Multiverses, no one's playing that. I mean, I personally felt that with Destiny 2. I played Destiny 1 almost its entire life cycle, and I joined Destiny 2 happy, but after a while, I mean, it just kind of got old to me and I gave up. But that doesn't mean it's dead to everybody else. I know it's tough to let go of the past, and a lot of us crave those older experiences we had when we were younger. But I want to leave you with this. Think back to a memory you may have had where you got home from a long day of school or something, and you ran over to your console and you had a blast playing a game, whether it was with your buddies or by yourself. It's a nice feeling, and that same feeling is still present. It's just not with you. It's with the younger generation of players. So though it's bittersweet that you have to let go, you can still have a lifetime of memories. Thanks for watching. Well, this is the end of the video. If you made it here, thanks for watching. I kind of put a little bit more elbow grease in this video with doing more research and a script, because usually I just kind of ramble like what I'm doing right now. But I just want to say thank you if you did watch the entire video. I know it's not perfect. I'm still trying to get a grasp of exactly what my voice is, what I want to do. But yeah, I appreciate the support nonetheless, and yeah.